Well, if there were chariots found in the Red Sea, it would probably have something to do with the crossing of the sea.
When divers explored the depths of the Red Sea, they expected ordinary shipwrecks, but what they discovered changed everything. Stretching for 1.5 miles beneath the water lay a mysterious Chariot Graveyard. Hundreds of wheel-shaped coral formations, along with the skeletons of humans and horses, were scattered across the seafloor. The scene looked like a battlefield frozen in time. How did these chariots and remains end up here? Could this be connected to the time of Moses and the Egyptian army? Join us as we uncover the details of this mind-blowing discovery that threatens to rewrite history. The battlefield beneath the Red Sea. The modern discovery began not with belief, tradition, or old stories, but with technology. A recent high-tech dive into the Red Sea focused on a deep section of the Gulf of Aqaba, an area long known for its extreme depth, sharp underwater slopes, and powerful currents. This was not a casual exploration. The dive involved sonar mapping, advanced underwater cameras, depth sensors, and radiation detection tools designed to identify unusual materials beneath the seafloor. What the instruments revealed immediately shocked the team. The scans did not show a single shipwreck, which is common in ancient trade routes. Instead, they revealed a long stretch of anomalies spread across more than a mile of seabed. The objects were not clustered in one tight location. They were scattered across a wide underwater corridor, forming a pattern that suggested movement rather than impact. This distribution stood out because shipwrecks usually sink in one place. Here, the signals appeared stretched across distance, as if something had traveled through the area before coming to rest. As divers descended, visibility dropped quickly. Sunlight faded into darkness. Fine sediment drifted through the water, limiting how far the human eye could see. The environment was silent except for breathing equipment and instrument alerts. At this depth, isolation is complete. There are no visual reference points, no horizon, and no clear sense of direction. Every movement must be careful, slow, and deliberate. On the seafloor, divers observed coral formations that appeared unusually symmetrical. Many of these formations showed circular and radial shapes. Some resembled wheels in outline, with spoke-like ridges created by coral growth. Coral is known to grow around solid objects, slowly covering them and preserving their shape even after the original material decays. This process is well documented in marine science and is how many ancient anchors and ship parts have been preserved in shallow seas. The sheer number of wheel-like shapes made the site unusual. These forms were not isolated. They appeared repeatedly across the mapped area. In addition to coral shapes, divers reported seeing large bone structures embedded in sediment and coral. Some of these bones were identified as belonging to horses based on size and shape. Others were fragmentary and scattered, making identification difficult without recovery and laboratory testing. The presence of large animals remains far offshore raises serious questions. Horses were not seafaring animals, and their remains are rarely found in deep marine environments unless carried there by a major event. One of the most striking elements of the dive involved gamma readings. Gamma detection tools are used to identify unusual radiation signatures that can indicate the presence of certain metals or dense materials buried under sediment. Several targets showed elevated readings. These readings did not identify specific objects, but they confirmed that something different from the surrounding geology was present. Sonar scans reinforced this, showing solid shapes beneath layers of coral and sand. What made this discovery different from past rumors was not interpretation, but method. Earlier claims relied mostly on photographs, personal dives, or visual impressions. This operation used repeated dives, multiple instruments, and cross-checked data. Targets were revisited more than once. Signals were confirmed from different angles and depths. The focus was not on proving a story, but on mapping anomalies. The scale of the site changed everything. a mile-long field of anomalies cannot be explained by a single accident. It suggests an event involving movement, force, and loss across distance. This raised the stakes immediately. If the objects were natural, then nature had produced a pattern unlike most known reef formations. If they were artificial, then they represented one of the most significant underwater finds ever recorded in the region. But this underwater battlefield did not appear without context. Ancient descriptions may have pointed toward this very stretch of coastline, using geography as a guide long before sonar ever existed. That trail begins with a text many dismiss as myth, yet one that reads surprisingly like a route map, following the ancient map hidden in Exodus. The Book of Exodus is often treated only as a religious document, but it also functions as an ancient travel account. When examined without theology, the text describes movement through real landscapes, physical obstacles, and geographic constraints. It names directions, terrain features, and environmental conditions. For researchers interested in historical geography, these details matter. The text describes a very large population traveling together. Such a group would require open space to camp, access to water, and clear routes of movement. It also describes a moment of entrapment. The people are said to be blocked by mountains behind them, with no clear path forward except through a body of water. This detail is crucial. It eliminates many traditional locations that offer wide escape routes or shallow marshlands. Along the Gulf of Aqaba, most coastlines are narrow and steep. Mountains rise sharply from the shore, leaving little flat land. One location stands out. Nuweiba Beach is one of the widest and flattest coastal plains in the region. It stretches for several miles and sits between tall mountain walls that restrict movement in nearly every direction except toward the sea. This geography matches the description of confinement found in the text. A large group could camp there. Once there, retreat would be difficult. Movement would be funneled naturally toward the water. These are not symbolic features. They are physical realities visible on satellite imagery and topographic maps. Nuweiba Beach is also isolated. Unlike northern areas of the Red Sea, it is not surrounded by major ancient trade cities. This isolation would explain why a large encampment could go unnoticed in Egyptian administrative records, which focused heavily on population centers and economic hubs. Beneath the water in this area, bathymetric maps show an underwater ridge stretching from the Egyptian side toward the Saudi coastline. This ridge is shallower than the surrounding seabed, though it still descends to significant depth. While it does not form a walkable land bridge by modern standards, it does create a continuous underwater corridor that differs from other parts of the Gulf. Long before modern dives, this combination of beach size, mountain barriers, and underwater contours attracted attention. Explorers, researchers, and amateur investigators were drawn to the site because it fit multiple criteria described in the ancient account. Not because it proved the event, but because it matched the physical setting better than many alternatives. One man believed coincidence had already crossed into certainty. He claimed the evidence was visible to anyone willing to dive deep enough. His conclusions would capture public attention worldwide and provoke some of the strongest criticism ever directed at a single explorer. The chariots in the deep, and the collapse of a theory. As attention returned again and again to the Gulf of Aqaba, one name became closely linked to the idea of chariots beneath the sea. Ron Wyatt was an amateur explorer who believed he had uncovered physical proof of the Exodus crossing. His claims were simple but powerful. He said that coral formations on the seafloor preserved the shapes of Egyptian chariot wheels. He described axles and hubs outlined by coral growth. He also argued that a natural underwater land bridge connected the Egyptian and Arabian sides of the Gulf, allowing people to cross on foot. These ideas spread quickly, especially among audiences already familiar with the biblical account. The reason was not complex. Coral formations can appear striking when photographed. Circular shapes draw the human eye. When such shapes appear in an area already associated with an ancient narrative, the mind naturally connects them. The geography of Nuweiba Beach added to this effect. Wide open space, steep mountain walls, and a clear line toward the sea created a setting that felt dramatic and complete. There was also emotional power behind the claims. The idea that a major ancient event left visible traces beneath the sea appealed to a deep desire to connect story with place. For many people, the thought that coral might be preserving the outlines of chariots felt meaningful. It suggested that history could be frozen in time, waiting to be revealed. However, visual appeal does not equal evidence. When specialists examined the claims, problems emerged quickly. Marine geologists studied detailed bathymetric maps of the Gulf. These maps showed that the underwater ridge described as a land bridge does exist, but it does not slope gently. Instead, it drops sharply on both sides into deep water. The gradients are steep and uneven. Such a formation would not allow safe passage for a large group of people or animals. Coral biologists also weighed in. Coral is known to grow in radial and circular patterns. These shapes occur naturally as coral colonies expand outward from a central point. Over time, erosion and breakage can make these formations appear segmented, resembling spokes or rims. This process does not require any object beneath the coral. It is a normal biological pattern seen in reefs around the world. Another critical issue was the absence of physical artifacts. No metal cores were recovered from the coral formations. No wooden remains, no datable materials, and no objects that could be tested in a laboratory were produced. Without recoverable material, claims cannot be evaluated using standard archaeological methods. Photographs alone are not sufficient. Logistical concerns further weakened the case. The depth at which many of the formations were reported exceeded safe limits for standard scuba equipment. Professional deep diving requires specialized gear, support teams, and strict safety protocols. There was no documentation showing that such measures were in place. This raised questions about how observations were made and whether they could be independently verified. There was also no licensed excavation. Archaeology is regulated to protect sites and ensure accurate recording. Wyatt did not conduct a formally approved underwater excavation. This meant there were no official records, no peer-reviewed reports, and no oversight from recognized institutions. Without these safeguards, claims remain personal interpretations rather than verified findings. On land, archaeologists found no supporting evidence. A movement of the size described in Exodus would likely leave traces. Campsites, tools, broken pottery, food remains, or animal bones would normally appear along travel routes or encampment areas. Extensive surveys around Nuweiba Beach have not produced such evidence. The absence does not disprove the event, but it does remove support for the specific location. So, what other discoveries were made aside from this Red Sea graveyard? Other amazing discoveries from around the world. Beyond the Red Sea, explorers and scientists have uncovered a range of incredible finds that shed light on human history, biblical stories, and the natural world. These discoveries show how much the Earth and our past still hold in hidden places. In Turkey, the search for Noah's Ark has fascinated explorers for centuries. The mountains of Ararat contain boat-shaped formations that some believe match the Ark's biblical description. Excavations at the Darupanar site revealed a long, narrow outline resembling a large vessel. Measurements show it spans over 160 meters, tapering at one end like a ship's prow. Some observers have reported features resembling timbers and internal compartments, suggesting a complex structure buried in the rock. Scientific analysis, however, has shown these formations are natural rock folds created by erosion and sediment layers, leaving the Ark's physical location unconfirmed. Yet, the site continues to capture imaginations worldwide. In Jerusalem, claims have been made about finding the Ark of the Covenant. Explorers described a hidden chamber beneath the city containing a stone container with a golden object. Some accounts even suggest traces of a substance interpreted as blood connected to the crucifixion. Despite these claims, archaeological authorities and site custodians report no verified artifacts or laboratory evidence, and no licensed excavation supports these discoveries. The mystery remains unresolved, but it highlights humanity's ongoing fascination with sacred objects. The pyramids of Giza have also been reinterpreted by some researchers. Beyond their known function as royal tombs, alternative theories suggested they could have served as grain storage during a great famine, using complex internal chambers and ramps. Mainstream archaeology confirms the pyramids were part of elaborate royal burial complexes, yet their precise engineering and massive scale continue to inspire theories about lost knowledge and historical mysteries. Other sites include the Dead Sea region. Explorers claim to find mineralized remnants of Sodom and Gomorrah, small, brittle stones that resemble ash and brimstone. These formations naturally occur from evaporation and salt deposits, but their unusual appearance invites speculation about the biblical destruction events described in Genesis. The landscape itself is harsh and otherworldly, providing a glimpse into how natural processes can resemble historical catastrophes. On a different scale, modern science has uncovered extraordinary ecosystems in the world's deepest oceans. In the Pacific Ocean's Hadal Trenches, thousands of feet below the surface, submersibles have revealed dense communities of clams, tube worms, and phosphorescent snails that survive without sunlight. They rely on chemical reactions like methane and sulfide conversion to produce energy, creating entire food webs in total darkness. These discoveries show life can thrive in extreme conditions previously thought impossible, offering insights into biology and planetary processes. Finally, in Wisconsin, USA, maritime archaeologists uncovered an ancient canoe graveyard along Lake Mendota. Radiocarbon dating showed vessels ranging from 5,200 to 700 years old, predating some of the most famous ancient structures. These canoes were preserved in mud sediments, demonstrating advanced woodworking and environmental understanding by pre-colonial communities. This tangible evidence contrasts with unverifiable claims, providing solid data about early human activity and transportation. Taken together, these discoveries, from biblical searches to deep-sea ecosystems and ancient watercraft, highlight the range of human curiosity and scientific exploration. Some finds are fully verified with samples and data, while others remain mysterious, blending legend, faith, and observation. They remind us that the Earth still holds secrets, waiting for explorers to uncover, examine, and understand. Now, to understand how real discoveries are confirmed and how they differ from belief-driven interpretation, we must look at underwater finds that science accepts without debate and see what separates mystery from proof. When the deep speaks clearly and when it doesn't. Underwater discoveries have transformed how humanity understands the past. When science confirms something beneath the sea, the process is slow, careful, and demanding. The ocean hides many secrets, but it does not give them up easily. Some discoveries speak clearly, supported by strong evidence. Others remain uncertain, surrounded by silence, debate, and unanswered questions. The mystery beneath the Red Sea sits firmly in the second category. To understand why the Red Sea findings remain unresolved, it is important to compare them with underwater discoveries that science fully accepts. In recent decades, researchers have identified deep-sea ecosystems using methane signals rising from the ocean floor. These discoveries were not based on shapes or assumptions. Instruments detected chemical signatures. Remotely operated vehicles captured images. Samples were collected, tested, and shared. Independent teams confirmed the same results in different locations. Over time, peer-reviewed studies established these ecosystems as real, measurable, and repeatable. Another example comes from ancient canoe graveyards discovered in lakes and coastal waters. These finds were preserved by thick sediment layers that limited oxygen exposure. Archaeologists recovered physical wooden remains. Radiocarbon dating established age ranges. Tool marks, construction methods, and cultural patterns linked the canoes to known human groups. The data could be checked again and again. Museums and universities documented every step. These discoveries became accepted not because they were exciting, but because they were verifiable. What makes such underwater discoveries credible is not emotion or visual impact. Credibility comes from reproducible data, physical samples, and open scientific review. The evidence can be revisited years later using better tools. Conclusions can be challenged and refined. This process builds trust, even when discoveries change what historians once believed. The Red Sea case stands in sharp contrast. There are signals, but no widely accepted artifacts recovered under controlled conditions. Sonar targets suggest metallic anomalies, yet no confirmed objects have been lifted, analysed and catalogued in peer-reviewed literature. Coral formations appear patterned, but patterns alone are not proof. Images exist, but images without samples remain interpretations, not conclusions. There is also a troubling absence of open debate. In confirmed discoveries, disagreement is loud and visible. Scientists publish opposing views. Conferences host arguments. Data is shared, questioned, and tested. In the Red Sea case, much of the response from institutions has been silence. Silence does not mean rejection, but it does not mean acceptance either. It leaves the subject suspended in uncertainty. This unresolved state creates tension. On one side are natural explanations. Coral is known to grow in circular and radial forms. Metal corrodes rapidly in salt water, leaving shapes that can mislead the eye. Geological ridges can appear smoother in limited visibility than they truly are. These explanations are grounded in known science and cannot be ignored. On the other side are questions that refuse to disappear. Why do certain formations appear clustered rather than randomly distributed? Why do some sonar readings repeatedly highlight the same zones across multiple dives? Why do some dives report biological remains far from expected coastal contexts, even if those reports remain unverified by formal excavation? These questions do not prove anything, but they also do not vanish with dismissal. The Red Sea battlefield remains in a narrow space between belief and evidence. It has not been proven, but it has not been fully explained away. Unlike confirmed discoveries, it lacks physical samples that can be dated, tested, and displayed. Unlike disproven claims, it continues to produce signals that draw attention from modern instruments. History shows that some discoveries arrive fully formed, backed by overwhelming proof. Others surface slowly, resisted for decades before clarity emerges. There are also cases where mysteries remain unresolved indefinitely, not because answers do not exist, but because conditions prevent proper investigation. So what really lies beneath the Red Sea? A forgotten army, a natural illusion, or a chapter of history humanity is not ready to face yet? And if the answers are already down there, sealed beneath coral and silence, who decides when the world is allowed to find them? If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.